Alright, so now that we've built our own looping chord progression, now we're going to start to build the drums of our track. Ableton Live Lite does come with its own selection of drum kits, so if we click on drums, we can see them all here. And these are just pre-made kits with a selection of drums that we might see in a drum kit. Kicks, snares, hi-hats, etc. We can also access the different drum hits within Ableton Live. Different kicks, congas even, claps, anything you might imagine. But luckily, this course comes bundled with a pack that we're going to use today. So if you've downloaded the course, assuming you've already downloaded the pack that came bundled with it, let's actually add it to our places, our library here. I'm going to go to Add Folder, navigate to wherever my sample pack is. So for me, it's the desktop. Select the ADSR Get Started sampler and hit Open. And now we'll have access to this right in our sidebar, so we can access all the different drum samples and other samples that we'll use later in the course. Before we dig into these samples though, let's go ahead and put a drum rack onto our second MIDI track. We do that by going to Drums and selecting this blank drum rack here. This is just an empty drum rack, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we're presented with a small grid. And this grid actually corresponds to our keyboard or our instrument if you have a controller with pads. You'll see that playing a key makes these boxes light up. And we're actually going to bring it down an octave so that our C1 is our lowest note on our keyboard, which you can adjust on your MIDI keyboard, or you can even do on your computer keyboard. And now we're not getting any sound. Obviously, there's no drums in this yet. That's where the bundled pack comes into play. So let's go ahead and navigate back to our pack. And what we're going to focus on right now are some drum hits. These are going to be individual drum sounds that we can use. I want to start with a kick. So within the folder, we have a few different kick sounds. You can choose the one that you like the most. I think that first one sounds pretty good. And let's drop it onto C1. So now C1 on our keyboard will correspond to that kick sound. Next up, let's go ahead and put a snare on D1. Navigate to the snares folder. I kind of like that one. Let's do it. Let's find a nice hi-hat to use. Ooh, I like that. Let's go ahead and put this on F#1. Let's just get crazy with it. So F#1 being this key right here. Awesome. Let's find a tom sample. Cool, I like that. Let's add a tom sample to E1. Cool. And don't forget that we already recorded a chord loop, which, let's play it back. We're now going to play along with that. And there's two ways we can play along with this. We can either turn the metronome on and play along with that. Or we can actually find a loop that works, a rhythmic loop within the pack that we can play along with. And actually it'll become part of our track. So there's a hi-hat loops folder here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose that second one. And I'm going to drop this into an empty clip on this audio track here. Let's go ahead and play that. And Ableton Live has already warped it and put it in time for us, which is extremely handy. I'm going to go ahead and bring the volume of this loop down here in our mixer section. Don't want it too overpowering. Now I can play along as long as my drum rack is still armed, and I can turn the metronome off. And if the finger drumming scares you a little bit, don't let it. Let's break it down in a very basic way. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm actually going to turn the metronome back on, and I'm going to go ahead and solo our drums. Our drums are the only thing that we can hear right now. Let's let the metronome roll. And let's remember again that the high-pitched tone in the metronome is our downbeat, and we're counting in cycles of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A very simple drum pattern to play would be to put the kick on 1, snare on 2, kick on 3, snare on 4. Let's count that out and play along. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If that seems a little too fast, remember we're playing with the metronome. We can adjust Live's tempo on the fly, and it will pretty much still preserve the sound of our track. We don't have to worry too much. So let's bring it down to 70 BPM, which is a little easier to play, a little slower than 82. And let's try that again. Playing kicks on 1 and 3, snares on 2 and 4. Count with the metronome. Count out loud if it's helpful. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very, very basic there, right? But what if in our brains we subdivide that time? That might sound like a big fancy word, but all it actually really means is instead of just counting 1, 2, 3, and 4, we're actually going to put the word and in between beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but we're still going to line up with that metronome. Let me demonstrate. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So once we start doing that, we have different places that we can fit these drums into as we start to subdivide that time. Let's go ahead and record that very, very basic drum loop. Instead of doing the looping technique that we did last time with the chords, let's actually try something different, and that's actually a little bit easier, especially for drumming if you're going to use 2 hands and you don't have a free hand to do looping. I'm going to double click within this empty clip slot here, and that's going to create a new MIDI clip. You can also do that by right clicking and selecting Insert MIDI Clip. But for now, we've got this empty clip here, and what you'll notice is that it created a 1-bar loop automatically. So if I start hitting play, you see that it's counting out those notes, 2, 3, 4, but it's only 1 bar. It's only cycling through 1 time. Let's make it a 4-bar loop to match up with our chords. I'm going to duplicate this loop. I'm going to duplicate it again. And now we've got a 4-bar loop, but it's empty. So let's hit play, and we're watching it go by, but how do we record? All we have to do is turn on this session record button. And now we're live. When I play notes, they'll be recorded. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and... Cool. And I played a little bit off time there. Once again, if we zoom in on the grid, we'll start to see, yes, not quite on time. So we can quantize. If I hit Command A and I hit Command U, we should pretty much snap to the grid. And again, we use that very simple subdivision of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So some of our notes fall on strong beats like a 1 or a 2 or a 4. Other notes fall on the and. So 1 and 2. You can see that lining up with the grid right there. It's not on the downbeat. It's not on beat 2. It's right halfway in between the two, right there. And you'll notice that the grid gets smaller and smaller. So of course, we could play smaller subdivisions. But let's stick with this simple beat for now. Don't forget that we have this cool tom sound and that cool open hi-hat sound. What I want to do is keep this simple loop with the kick and snare, but duplicate it so that I can add toms and add hi-hats, but have both loops available to me. So to do that, all I have to do is click on the clip and hit Command D for duplicate. Now this clip is not currently playing. You can tell because the play button is not illuminated. If I click play, it'll start playing. And it sounds exactly like the other clip. But let's add to it. And the way we do that is actually the same process as before. All we have to do is click the session record button. It gives us a count in, and now suddenly any notes we play will record into this loop. Now, I didn't like everything that I played there, so I stopped recording. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command U and quantize those notes really quick. And let's find what I didn't like. I don't like that double hit on the toms the first time, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight those two notes and just press delete. And I could probably do without these double hits as well. Actually, let's keep these double hits, but let's move them over and have them be at the end there. Let's go ahead and hover over bar 4 with that speaker icon. If we hover right in the right place, we can play right from there. That's much better. And now we have a drum loop. But don't forget that we also have a hi-hat loop already playing and a chord loop. Let's hear how this all fits together. Let's unsolo it. It actually all fits together pretty well. I am noticing my master is going a little bit in the red, which is not a huge deal if it still sounds good, especially at the beginning stages. But if you did want to solve that, all you have to do is select all your tracks. Let's hold shift, click on the first track. Let's do it to all the tracks, all 4. And then if we pull down the mixer, you'll notice that all of the mixing volumes have changed. And we're going to bring it down to like a suitable volume. We're not in the red. And we're pretty good. I can turn my metronome off now because we have a sense of time with the drums. Don't forget that this clip up here also exists, the simple version. I want to play that. And remember, it's going to come in on the downbeat. I'm going to hit the play button, and on the next downbeat, this clip will start playing. Ready? Hit it. 4, 1. Same thing with stopping clips. So if a track is not armed, it's got stop buttons below it, just like this. All the tracks have a stop button right here. So let's stop the hi-hats. It's stopped on the downbeat. That is the global launch quantization. Big fancy word for everything lines up with the downbeat. Let's bring it back in. 1. Let's put in the more advanced clip. And there is a very, very basic way to add in some drums to our beat. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about adding a bass line and a melody on top of this beat.